أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا الكريم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد وبعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته brothers and sisters, welcome to another Friday reminder. I want to discuss since we're still in COVID, I want to discuss something that kind of I've been speaking to people and I've also observed, and which is really at the heart of Islamic teachings and or the Sharia and fiqh. One of the things that the COVID-19 has globally demonstrated and shown, and we discussed a number of different themes over the months of the last year. One of the things that has demonstrated, not just in the UK, um, globally, is about how people have dealt with COVID-19 in terms of the family, right? In the UK, you read stories and news that elderly people, they're alone. The grandchildren, the children, they're not able to obviously get in touch. They're not able to cook. They're not able to do X, Y, and Z. They're not able to live a comfortable life as they should be doing, right? So, and what because families are living apart, they have different understanding or perspectives of how they should go about in this life. Where you have a really elderly person who lives. Sometimes I get that there's no room and whatnot, but it's the culture that we live in, that the closeness of the family, the close family and the wider family setting, people are not connected, right? And COVID-19 has clearly demonstrated this, right? You hear news stories and people talking, right? From the Islamic perspective, right? Family is at the heart of everything. Family is at the heart of everything. Without family, right? Without family, there's nothing. So as you know, I have a responsibility to look after my elderly parents. I have a responsibility to look after my grandparents. I have a responsibility to look after the people around me. My primary focus is my own family, and then my extended family, and then the people outside of that. Right? What happens is that people they tend to focus on outside and they avoid the family members. Obviously, no one is perfect. The people will always make mistakes, but the focus is not there. And if you look at the Sharia, look at the Quran and Sunnah, it's all about the family. Look at the encouragement, the commandments, the guidance is given by the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, right? It's all about look after your family, look after your elders, look after the women around you, look after the vulnerable around you, right? And the reason why the society, unfortunately, is in a bit of a mess, I believe, is because of, I mean, and non-Muslim secularists are also discussing this in America and also in the UK. The traditional family setup has broken apart, and this has permeated within the psyche of the Muslim. Allah Subhanahu wa Taala created us, and He given us specific roles and responsibilities. As a father, what do I need to do? As a wife, what do I need to do? As a husband, what do I need to do? As an uncle, what do I need to do? As a brother, what do I need to do? As a sister, what do I need to do? It's clearly outlined in the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And as I said, these issues are emphasized over and over again, either directly or indirectly. And what is as I said, what is happening now, the un-Islamic kind of notions, concepts are creeping into the psyche of brothers and also sisters. And this is happening. We may not see I mean, we're seeing the ramifications of that now, but in 10 years' time, or even 20, 50 years' time, you will see the whole landscape will change, right? People will say, I will, got my drop my elderly parents at the home at the care house. Sometimes I get it. It's very difficult to look after them. You need to do that, but that's the main responsibility to look after elderly parents is not their care home. The main responsibility is you. They looked after you, right? I remember what this one subhanAllah, I was working in an organization and we're providing kind of financial assistance to people. And there's one sister, elderly, she was living on her own. She came from Pakistan. She was living on her own. She didn't know how to do anything. And the child and her son was not willing to provide for her, right? Right? And money and look after. And he said, "Oh, I want to save up for my PhD." And he was applying. This. I thought, "Oh my God, what the what what is this?" Right? Really, literally, I feel like going and smacking him because some people you need to smack them, otherwise they don't understand. Literally, how dare you? This is your mother, right? How can you let her go? How can you not? Okay, you let her go to another house. She's living on her own. Doesn't understand English. Doesn't understand the society she's in. Look at amount of mental psychological pressure she's in. And at the same time, this is your son that changed your nappies, right? Woke up in the middle of the night for you, fed you, clothed you, trained you, educated you. Now you're saying you want to save up for your stupid PhD and you don't want to provide for your family? I mean, that's not a man, right? That's an animal, right? That's not a man. And unfortunately, this is not an isolated incident, brothers and sisters. These are incidents that are recurring, every single day. And why? Because the notions of the concept, the understanding of family within the Muslim society, Muslim community is breaking apart, and it's leading to these, you know, idiotic, silly, animalistic behavior of that person, right? And that is why, as a mosque, as organizations, as individuals who understand, it is imperative that we focus on building people's iman, building people's understanding of the responsibility towards the society, but more importantly, the responsibility towards the family members, right? And it starts off before you get married, the right husband that you choose, the right wife that you choose, right? Even scholars mention that your children before you like amazing scholars in the fiqh book, they mention that one of the rights of your children that they have over you before you get married, before you have children, is that you choose a good husband and good wife. Amazing. Do you see how the Sharia, the fiqh, emphasizes this point so much? This is their right even before you get married, before you have children. And people are not able to kind of choose the right person, and because we're influenced by wider concepts and ideologies and notions that are not really you know true to the Islamic understanding of family life, right? There are, as a counselor, I counsel people. There are brothers who, when they get married, they feel that they need to just be like they're marrying their mother. My wife will do everything for them, right? You're a man. You need to work. You need to go out and work, provide for your family, right? There are brothers who think that the wife will work, wife will come back in the house, and she will take care of the kids and do the house cleaning and cooking. He doesn't have to do anything. I mean, this is what this is not Islam. This is not the way to be a man. Biologically, men are created to work, right? Men who are not able to work, or men who are not working, they have so much psychological pressure. Biologically, women are created to nurture. Women are more compassionate. They show more empathy. This naturally within them, right? And there are also brothers like that. There are also sisters who, you know, they don't want to do anything, right? They want to pursue the career, pursue this, which is I'm not against women working, right? Don't get me wrong. I'm not against women being educated. That's perfectly fine. But the default position is not to be as a work career minded. I'm not saying not to have a career, but career minded, meaning that you forfeit, you sacrifice your family life, your duty to your parents, your duty to your husband, your duty to your wife, your duty to your brothers and your sisters and whatnot, right? For that particular material gain. Sharia allows women to work. Sharia allows, obviously, in fact, in Sharia, men are obligated to work. If men don't work, meaning men are obligated to provide for the family. If they don't, they're sinful. Women are not. If they do, alhamdulillah, no problem. As long as the precepts are maintained. So these basic understandings, basic notions of how family should function is being stripped upside down, right? It's being, taken apart, and that's why we have so much problem. In fact, non-Muslim, the middle class, non-Muslim are going back to the traditional understanding of family life, right? But I gotta emphasize again, it does not mean women are not allowed to work. I advocate that it's not a problem. In fact, I counsel some sisters, say you should work because sometimes you need to, because if your husband dies or whatever, then who look after you, right? And you know pre historically women have always needed to work sometimes. In some society women go in the farm and work, right? So there's no problem with that, but we have to look at the default position. In other words, we have to look at what is my priority, right? What is my priority, right? So, what are family values in Islam? Really, really important that, you know, you worship God and you don't associate partner with God, and you do ihsan towards your parents. You care, you do ihsan towards your parents. Yes, sometimes it can be difficult and whatnot, but you do ihsan towards your parents. You don't ignore them, right? Imagine while when you were 1 or 2 or 5, if they were to ignore you, how would you be able to grow up? So at there, as Allah mentions, that we are born, we become adult, and then we become frail again, like a little baby. Who's going to look after? Who's going to look after them? And when you go, imagine when you go old, and your children, if you perpetuate these notions, right, which is un-Islamic notions, when you go old and you need your children to help you, they'll say, well, there's a care home for you. Well, it is not our responsibility. How would we feel in that situation, right? So family values includes, being dutiful towards your parents, be, caring for them, being there for your husband, being there for your wife, being there for your brother, your sister, right? Your nieces, your nephews. These are your responsibility. These people are your responsibility, and then it extends to your wider family, your grandparents, your grandfather, um, grandmother. You also, if you are grandparents, your grandchildren, grandchildren, grandsons. All these people are your direct, right, responsibility. Direct responsibility. That is why, a lot of people, they complain. Even Muslims, a'udhu billah, right? They think that the Quran is unjust. A'udhu billah. When Allah says, Allah has given more share of the inheritance to the male than the woman. And they say, oh, this is not fair, this is not equality and whatnot. Well, you have not understood God's wisdom. How dare you say God's wisdom is not just and fair? Everything God has said, yes, we may misinterpret. Most human beings misinterpret. That's inevitable, right? But we cannot, in any form of fashion, say God's wisdom is not fair. It's always fair. And scholars have described this. The Muslim family in Islam, in Sharia, is a cohesive system. It's a cohesive, system of roles, rights, and responsibility. It's an ecosystem. And when something in an ecosystem, when something is taken out, then the whole ecosystem falls apart. A person is not doing his or her responsibility, the whole ecosystem of the family breaks apart. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says He's given more in the inheritance, because the woman is not obligated to look after, financially or otherwise, other people in the family. The man is obligated, with wajib, fard, upon him to look after his wife, his sons and daughters, his mother, his grandmother, right? His wife, right? His sisters. He's obligated, right? If his sisters are in need of money, he has to provide for them, right? And he has to take care of his wife, food, shelter, clothing, holiday, whatever is urf requires. You have to. Her money is her money. The money that she inherits, is not obligatory. The money that is inherited, right, by her is not obligatory upon her to help her husband financially, help her brothers or sisters or anyone else. It's the responsibility of the man. This is the wisdom of. And now, if Allah is given equal share, then that would be unfair. And then if equal share and said, man, you have to provide for your family, you have to look after your family, all these people I mentioned and more, that would be unfair. But God is in His eternal wisdom. He understands us. He knows. He wants us to worship Him. Be in this world that in a way that fulfill His objectives in this life. Yeah. So and there are so many other rulings. There are so many other understanding in the Sharia that people assume, even Muslims I'm talking about, Muslims assume that it's unfair, right? It's not right, and there's a attack on Islam, but even by I'm talking about Muslims, because they've been influenced, right? They've been influenced by un-Islamic notions and Islamic practices. Yeah. So looking after your parents, the husband is his responsibility to provide for the wife. I'll give an example of how some men are, right? And the only thing they need is a metaphorical step at least, right? They're not being men. They're not showing chivalry, right? So the responsibility of the man is to look after, take care of the family. Remember the incident of Umar ibn Khattab anhu, when he became the president, if you will, as it were. A man has some issues with his wife. A man came to complain to Umar ibn Khattab anhu. And then before he came inside, he knocked on his door. He heard, a woman, talking loudly, right? And he thought, I'm gonna leave. So he began to leave, and Umar Khattab, he noticed him, and he opened the door. He said, man, what do you need? What do you want? And the man said, no, don't worry, nothing. He said, man, what do you need? Tell me, right? And the man said, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, oh leader of the believers, I came to you to, just not complain and talk about my wife and what's happening in my house, but I hear that I hear that you have bigger issues. I'm using my words, right? And what Umar Khattab said, look, you know, my wife, takes care of this and that and whatnot. And sometimes if she wants to be annoyed at me, or this is my words, obviously. Sometimes if she wants to, talk loudly or say this or that, just remain silent. Just remain silent. This is the beauty of Islam. This is the beauty of Islam. So it's the responsibility of the man to look after. It's the responsibility of the wife, primary role of the wife, primary, not the only role, primary role, priority is to nurture the children, educate the children, right? And unfortunately, in society, again, I'm not against sisters working. Sharia has given her allowance in circumstances that she may need to work and she needs to work. I'm not against that, by the way, just to add a caveat over again, so people don't misunderstand. But the priority in the Sharia is for her, to nurture the children, to nurture the children. Right, that's the priority. Biologically, Allah SWT created the woman to bear children. Right, it doesn't mean the husband doesn't look after the children. Also, it doesn't mean the husband doesn't help. I'm not saying that. No, not at all. The Prophet helped in the house, right? But the priority of the wife is to look after the house, look after the Prophet said, the woman is the leader of her house. She's the Amira. She's the leader of of her house. This is very, very powerful. And unfortunately, in this society, among Muslim, people cuss those women who look after their house and their housewives. A housewife is a CEO. She's a leader. She's a president, right? A CEO. She has her people that she needs to look after, right? It's more valuable, more worthy than in being a CEO, to be a mother, to nurture an ummah, to educate, to manage an ummah. I mean, there's no more noble, right, responsibility than that. But unfortunately, in this society, women who choose, not men force them, but women who choose to stay at home and look after the children, right? They get labeled, they get cussed, they're told by other people, other women also, that they are being forced to do that. No, right? And this is the notion that we have to really stamp out from within the psyche of the Muslims. There are others who kind of like they compare our society and their time with the Prophet. You can't compare. We can't compare. Allah SWT has given us principles, but we can't compare, right? If you compare, then you have to compare holistically. You can't be selective. You can't pick and choose, right? And I counsel people where, for example, that a brother works 8, 9, 10 hours, 12 hours a day, right? 6 days a week. And then he goes out at 7 a.m., comes back 7 p.m., right? Long hours, hard labor. Comes back, he's expected to cook and clean and look after the children. Expected to do that. I mean, the guy has been working 12, 13 hours. He wants to come home and chill. But he's expected to do the other things also. No. It has to be based on mutual understanding. And at the same time, there are brothers, as I said, who want their wives to work and they want their wives to come back home to clean and cook and do all other stuff. No, that's not Islam. That's not Islam. So as couples, as families, they have to come together and mutually agree, right? Mutually agree what is best for them, right? What will make them happy. Islam has given guidelines, principles, but mutually agree what will be suitable for them, because not everyone is the same. Not everyone's situation is the same. And I can say many more things, but it's important to read up on family values in Islam. Family, and this is something that, as a mosque, that we need to really emphasize over and over, not just generally about family life. As I said, non-Muslims are coming back to the traditional view, right? You look at how authors and experts were talking about family values 50 years ago, and how they talking about families now is completely different. Completely different. You will not be able to say there's some of the things that people used to say 50 years ago now. Right? It's completely different. Within 50 years, 60 years, things have changed so drastically, right? And it's breaking up societies, it's breaking up communities, breaking up the nucleus family life. Yeah. So I'll end here, inshallah. And if you have any comments, questions, I'll take some.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Just while we're perhaps waiting for something to come through on the chat, I just had a question myself. A little bit confused. I mean, I understand you mentioned that the woman's wealth is hers, and the man's wealth is also hers, essentially as part of the family structure. So there's a clear Islamic precedent for the man to work more.
Yeah, it's the responsibility of the man.
Sure. So the bit I didn't get was when you were talking about basically men being sort of mothered or pampered. And was that part of sort of the extended family situation, or just the fact that women are at home more?
No, my point was that I've seen brothers, unfortunately, some, not all, some, that they feel that that they don't need to do anything because their wives got a good job, and she should go out to work, and not only that, she should come back to the house after work and cook and clean and do all the other stuff, domestic stuff, and he just plays with the PlayStation and watches Netflix and Amazon Prime or whatever, right? That's not being a good husband. That's not being a man. That was my point. And there are I've seen some brothers unfortunately approach marriage like that. Yeah, I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, sorry. Yeah, that's clearly not the correct situation.
Yeah,
Although I've not come across that myself. But it seems, personally, I guess the expression "man up" could also be sort of Muslim up, because there's certainly no Islamic pretext or precedent for sitting at home playing
yeah,
PlayStation.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, not just man up or Muslim. I think generally men generally are being emasculated. People because of popular culture. I don't blame necessarily men or women. It's not about blaming man or the woman. I think it's about we have to look at what's happening in popular culture, in the popular songs and films and videos and social media. What is happening? It's been stripped away from the traditional understanding of how a man should be or how a woman should be. I think that's very, very problematic. Very problematic. The other misunderstanding, there's a lot of misunderstanding, unfortunately, and just due to because people don't know fit properly, or people really want to be selective in understanding. So another example that, like, the man, when he works, he has to provide for the wife, and there are so many different rulings for that. It's obligatory. A woman is allowed to work. It's a mutual understanding that's based on taradi or mutual understanding between the husband and wife. Is perfectly fine, right? I'm not against that. But what happens is that in the flip side of it, some sisters assume that when the brother works 30 hours a week or 36 hours a week, the sister works 35, 36 hours a week. Yeah. And I've seen this. Some sisters, say that, okay, look, what I earn is my money. I don't have to contribute anything. I don't have to give anything to the household, right? And she says that, okay, what he earns, he has to provide my clothing, my holiday, my this, my that, and whatnot. Well, that's not Islam. Where this is unfortunately some imams also promote this ignorant view. That's not Islamic view. You look at the fiqh, the scholars say if scholars allow women to work, right, and it's based on the nafaqah discussion, right, maintenance discussion, right. If a woman works and both parties agree, perfectly fine, right. But if a woman works, that means she is moving away from the default position. And when you move away from the default position, then the ruling change. In that situation, some scholars say it's obligatory upon her, it's wajib upon her to contribute to the family financially. Other scholars say it's not obligatory, but she should contribute. I personally, my view is that if a sister works and there's, as I said, perfectly fine to do that, right? But if you work 30, 35 hours, the brother also works, then you cannot rely upon the brother to provide for everything. You have to also contribute. You can't say it's my money and say that his money is my money. But when you work, no, it's your money only. No, you can't say that. That's being unfair. And alhamdulillah, fiqh and the Sharia fiqh is very, very balanced. Very balanced. It's given as principles, given as default positions, but when you move away from those default positions, then the rulings slightly change. There are different opinions among the scholars. The view that I advocate, the view I follow, which I think it makes sense, is rational, is that when a sister works, and I think many sisters would agree with that, right? Some sisters will not agree with that because they've been, psyched. They've been, the other notions have been, creeping inside their heads, right? They want their cake and eat it. No, Islam is fair and balanced. Islam has given clear guidelines, right? And those people who advocate equality, they're not really advocating equality because there's no such thing as equality. There's equity, right? There's equity. There's no such thing as equality, right? If we were all equal, right, then there would be a problem. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us differently. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us in nations and tribes, right? So, and again, these are long discussions that I hope I'm not misunderstood. I hope it makes sense, inshallah. But if, on that last point, if you have any comments, discussion point, please mention it before I go to the next question, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, I think the discussion should be based around equity and justice rather than equality. But yeah, if you could have a look at the question on the chat, Sheikh.
Okay. So, Sheikh, given semi-broken society we live in and always need to be intact to make sure we follow Islamic values, can a woman divorce a husband that isn't providing for their family, such as the type of husband you mentioned? I mean, look, that's a really good question. Thank you for that. There's two ways of approaching it. You can approach it from a legally dry, technical perspective. You can approach it other ways. So in this situation, I try to avoid giving a direct answer. Why? Because I don't know the full situation. And I think it would be unwise for me, although I understand it, although there's a technical answer for it, but, in these questions, so if someone says, for example, can I take a mortgage out? I tend to avoid giving a direct answer because there's so much complexity. I have to look at your own situation. You have to look at your own situation, your financial situation, your family situation. Because it's not, black and white all the time. Some things are very black and white. Halal is clear, haram is clear. But other times, all the times, there are so many nuances and complexities that we have to factor in. So it's a very important question. Thank you for that. And please forgive me. I'm not trying to kind of marginalize the question. No, I'm saying is that it's very difficult for me to give a direct answer, yes or no, because there are so much complexities in those situations. Yeah, as a counselor, I have to look into, if you want a dry fic, then I can give that, but I tend to avoid that, right? Because I have to look at the person's situation, the people's situation. Obviously, if it comes to like abuse, someone's beating the husband and the wife, that's clear cut, right? That's very, very clear cut. But those situations, and what is happening in the social media is that people want to, receive bite-sized information, and bite-sized information is good in certain circumstances. But in this situation, we're talking about in a whole family setting, right? We're talking about a whole family setting, and there may be misunderstandings between the husband and wife. There may be, they may not be following the Islamic principles. So we have to look at, all of these different factors to give a really holistic and I would say authentic answer. Hope that helps, inshallah. How can a woman stand up in an Islamic way for her husband? That's another really good question, and I think it's about reminding the husband that he has royal responsibility, right? Reminding the husband that he, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala joined, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala joined the husband and wife together. Allah, it's an amana, it's a trust, it's an amana, right? The women folks are amana, a trust. If we betray that trust, we'll be sinful. Some brothers don't understand this, subhanAllah, right? It's an amana. Right? If we fail in our responsibility to love, take care of our wives, we will be accountable on the day of judgment. It's not just, okay, let's get married and, have intimacy and that, and have some kids and that is it. And unfortunately, people just misunderstand marriage. And this is why, I say to him, one of my comments, I make all the time is that people like plan 1 year or 2 years in advance for their wedding day, but they don't give much thought for their marriage. That makes sense. People spend thousands and thousands. I'm not against that. If you have the money, you want to celebrate, ahlan wa sahlan. right? I am not against that, right? But people spend tens of thousands and spend 1 year, 2 years, 3 years in advance planning for 2, 3 hours max, right? 3 hours of the wedding day, right? Okay, 5 hours, I'll give you that, right? 2, 3 years they plan in advance, but they don't give much thought, right? The actual marriage, how should they be? How should how should I train myself? How should I educate myself? People don't give enough. I would say we should give more importance in planning about the marriage rather than the wedding day. Yeah. So to answer that question, it's about you know reminding. It's about education. It's about helping one another to do what is expected of them from Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. I hope that makes sense.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. I think there are no more questions on the chat now. So if you'd like to wrap up with a dua.
Jazakallah khair, brothers and sisters. I hope inshallah we'll discuss more on these similar points in the coming weeks or months, inshallah. I feel that this is a really neglected. Like when people talk about marriage, they always talk about like the fiqh of marriage, you know, the nikah contract. These are basic stuff. These are things that you can watch a YouTube series and learn and ask questions. These are, yes, you need to have a teacher and learn, definitely, right? The fiqh is really, really important, but we have to go beyond fiqh sometimes. And when in a marriage setting, if a husband and wife always approach them from a legalistic perspective, the marriage will break apart. There has to be mutual understanding, right? So inshallah we'll discuss on these topics more, because I feel that this is a really important subject, a really neglected subject, and a lot of people who kind of approach this topic, they approach it, they don't really have the research, they don't have the practical experience on this. I've been researching these issues for decades. I've been counseling couples for decades, right? I'm not saying I know everything, but I have some understanding, right? And then a lot of people who do talk about this, they don't really have much experience or know the research to back it up. I actually wrote a book on it, right? I'm not publishing it yet because I have to go back and change a lot of stuff. But the point is, it's an important topic that we need to discuss over and over again. More like, I think, not just a monologue from me, but have a discussion, inshallah, right? So we'll do that, inshallah. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide you. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect all of us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala resurrect us on the day of judgment. While Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased with us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make our spouses the delight of our eyes. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make our children the delight of our eyes. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enable us to fulfill our rights and responsibilities towards one another. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala fulfill our wishes and our desires in this dunya. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us happy when we look into the eyes of our husband and our wives. سبحانك ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Until next time, inshallah, I'll see you on Sunday, 8 p.m. the Tafsir of Surah Yusuf. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Sheikh, just before you go, I just want, I have a feeling it's Wikipedia tomorrow.
Is it tomorrow? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So it's just, I thought it was quite apt that, you had the discussion around the marriage topic. And that was, I think, the topic that was proposed for tomorrow's session. So inshallah, for those of you who are interested, please join tomorrow's session. Details will be sent out via WhatsApp and email, hopefully today.
I remember. It is actually a really important topic. It's related to this topic. Really, please encourage everyone. And we want, obviously, over 18s only, right? We're going to be discussing probably certain things, and we shouldn't be shy of discussing. I think we need to discuss it in a mature way, but I think it's really, really important for us to discuss and remind people about these issues, because I think, as I said, family life is, the cornerstone of Islamic teachings, right? How the husband and wife should be, with each other, not just physically, intimately, psychologically, mentally, emotionally. These are all really, really important. So inshallah, tomorrow I think about 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. I can't remember.
I think it's 8 p.m., but I'll confirm that and send out the text, inshallah, to everyone on the list. But as Sheikh said, please do attend to perhaps continue this discussion topic, inshallah.
Okay, inshallah. Take care. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam and jazakallah khair for everyone attending.